There is a gorgeous Beauty and the Beast story from Mexico that involves a bear, but it's a Catholic bear. It's called The Bear Prince. The woodcutter has 3 daughters. One day the woodcutter goes to the woods and he's cutting down wood when suddenly this bear pops out and he's like, "Why are you stealing my wood?" It's interesting because in lots of Beauty and the Beast stories, the dad ends up going into a palace and stealing from a garden, but in this one, he's just going out into nature that he thinks belongs to everyone, but the bear feels differently. So the bear's like, "I'm gonna kill you." And then the dad says, "No, please, Señor Oso," which means bear. "I'm just cutting wood to support me and my 3 daughters. Please spare me." The bear thinks about it and he's like, "All right, give me one of your daughters in marriage and I'll let you go." The dad goes home to his daughters and he's like, "Look, one of you is gonna have to marry this bear." And the 2 oldest are like, "Hell no." But the youngest, her name is Ninfa, says, "I will marry the bear." So the next day, the dad takes her out to the forest. The bear's like, "All right, let's get married." But Ninfa's like, "Hold up, I have been brought up right. I want to follow God's law, so if I'm gonna marry you, I want to be married according to Catholic rites." The bear agrees, and they go get a priest to come out to the forest to perform this sacred holy ceremony between our girl and the bear. Because they do find a Catholic priest willing to do this, which feels against the rules of Catholicism. But they do it, they get married. I mean, presumably the bear takes communion. I just can't get over that part. The bear takes her back to his cave, which is another thing that's different because usually the beast character lives in some kind of castle, but it's just a cave. But once they're alone, he says, "Bear so hairy, bear so alarming, change into a prince handsome and charming." That's obviously the English translation, but it's probably something that rhymes in Spanish too. Then, of course, changes into a handsome prince, and he tells Ninfa, "Look, I'm under a curse. I have to be a bear during the day, but I'll be a prince at night for you, and you can't ever tell anyone." She promises not to tell anyone, and they live happily for a while. They're in the cave, but apparently she's so good with, how he is as a human, it's all fine. Until finally, like all Beauty and the Beast stories, she wants to go home and visit her family, and the bear's like, "Okay, but remember, don't tell them." She's like, I won't. But then when she goes home, her sisters are like, "Oh my God, you married a bear. How gross is it?" They make her feel so bad and embarrassed that finally she says, "Look, he's actually a hot dude, okay? He's a prince cursed by a witch." The sisters are like, "Oh, well, why don't you break the curse? It's gotta be easy. When you go home, get him drunk. When he goes to sleep, tie him and gag him. Then, when he wakes up, he won't be able to say the magic words. Enchantment will be broken and he'll be a handsome prince forever. Problem solved." So Ninfa goes home and she does that, which is really fun because in most of these stories, she burns his skin or hides his skin or just tells his secret and that breaks the enchantment. But in this one, she just gets him drunk and kind of assaults him. So when he wakes up, tied up and gagged, he can't say the enchantment, and when daylight comes and he's still a prince, she ungags him and he says, "Wife, you have broken your promise. You must bear the consequences." Get it, bear? It really says that. In order to break the enchantment, we had to live with this bear part-time thing for a year and a day, but it hasn't been long enough. Now you're gonna have to look for me, find me at the Castle of Faith. And then he disappears. Regretting what she's done, Ninfa puts all her belongings on her back and goes off searching for him. She finds a wizard and asks if he knows where the Castle of Faith is. The wizard's like, "No, but I think my brother does. Go find him, but also take this nut, and if you're ever in trouble, break the nut and it'll help you." She keeps traveling, finds the brother wizard. He doesn't know either and also gives her a nut. He directs her to another wizard who gives her another nut and directs her to the moon. She gets to the moon's house and the moon's housekeeper lets her in and she's like, "Oh my God, when the moon gets here, it's gonna be so hungry and it's gonna eat you." Her girl cries and tells her story, so the old lady's like, "Okay, hide behind the stove and I'll try and find out." Moon comes home and thinks it can smell human flesh and is hungry, but she convinces her that no human is there. She asks about the Castle of Faith and the moon's like, "I don't know, but the sun might." So after the moon leaves again, our girl goes to the sun. The sun also has a little old lady housekeeper who's like, "Oh no, the sun's gonna burn you." And just then the sun bursts in and our girl crosses herself and prepares to die. But when she tells the sun her story, the sun's like, "Oh, actually, I'll help you. Go to my friend the wind and it'll take you there." And so she does, and the wind takes her to this castle. There's a fiesta going on at the castle. It's brightly lit and there's guitars and violins. Ninfa goes inside and she's told that her husband just got married to another woman and they're celebrating his marriage. This woman is an evil witch who has blinded him and made him forget about Ninfa. Probably the same witch who enchanted him in the first place. But once the prince sees Ninfa, he remembers her and he's like, "Oh my God, get the witch out of here. Bring her to me." But the witch is like, "No, servants, go get that girl. She's a beggar." Servants listen to the witch and they attack our girl, so she breaks the first nut from the first wizard. She turns into a rat who scrambles away, but then the witch turns herself into a cat and chases after her. So Ninfa jumps on the prince's plate, breaks the other nut, and turns into a piece of grain on the plate. But the witch turns herself into a chicken and starts trying to peck at her and eat her. Then Ninfa breaks the third nut and turns into a coyote and eats the chicken in one bite. So she eats the witch. That's how she kills her. She then just transformed back into a human, and she and the prince lived happily ever after. So really getting him drunk and tying him up and gagging him sort of worked out in the end anyway. I mean, he trapped her in a marriage by threatening to kill her father, so I feel like he can probably forgive it.